Jake Morrison stood at the bridge of the New Horizon, watching the stars stretch into lines as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The familiar hum of the ship's engines filled the quiet space around him. He had been commanding this vessel for 3 years now, and it still felt like a miracle that humans were allowed to fly among the stars at all. The year was 2387, and humanity had been part of the Galactic Federation for only 32 years. Most days, Jake wondered if that membership was worth the constant humiliation. Every other species in the galaxy seemed to think humans were stupid, backward, and barely worth notice. "Captain, we're approaching the Kepler 442 system," said Lieutenant Danny Torres from the engineering station. Danny was one of the best engineers Jake had ever worked with, even if the alien species refused to acknowledge it. He had a gift for fixing things that shouldn't work and making improvements that often surpassed alien technology. "Good work, Danny. Dr. Grant, are you ready for the survey?" Jake turned to the woman studying readings at the science station. Dr. Lisa Grant was there as an archaeologist, an expert in ancient civilizations from across the galaxy. She had joined the crew 6 months ago, and Jake had quickly learned to respect her sharp mind and careful methods. "All sensors are calibrated and ready, Captain," Lisa replied without looking up from her instruments. "Though I have to say I'm not expecting much from this system. Federation records show it's been dead for over 50,000 years. Jake nodded. That was typical for human missions. The Federation gave them the boring jobs, the systems that had been picked clean by better-equipped alien survey teams decades ago, while the crystal-like Zephyrians got to explore rich new worlds and the telepathic Mindari claimed the most interesting archaeological sites. Humans were left with the scraps. The New Horizon was one of only 5 human ships authorized for deep space exploration. The Federation Council had made it clear that this was a generous allowance for such a young species. Other races had been traveling between stars for thousands of years before humans had even invented the wheel. At least that's what the Federation history books claimed. "Take us into orbit around the 4th planet," Jake ordered. "Let's get this survey done and head home." Kepler 442b appeared on the main screen as they approached. It was a frozen world, covered in thick ice and showing no signs of life. The planet was locked in an eternal winter, too far from its star to support liquid water. Jake had seen dozens of worlds like this one. Dead, cold, and empty. "Beginning surface scans," Lisa announced. "Standard geological survey, looking for mineral deposits and any signs of past civilization." Jake settled into his captain's chair and tried not to think about what was waiting for them back on Earth. The Federation had made it clear that humanity's continued membership depended on their usefulness. They needed to prove they could contribute something valuable to the galactic community. So far they were failing. The other species never let humans forget their place. In Federation meetings, human representatives were often ignored or dismissed. When they proposed new ideas, the aliens would smile politely and then proceed as if no one had spoken. The message was clear. Humans were newcomers who should be grateful for any attention at all. "Captain, I'm picking up something unusual," Danny called out from his station. "There's some kind of energy signature coming from the northern hemisphere. It's very faint, but it's definitely artificial." Jake straightened in his chair. "What kind of energy signature?" "I'm not sure. It's like nothing I've seen before. The pattern is too regular to be natural, but it's so old and weak that I almost missed it." Lisa looked up from her instruments, excitement flickering in her eyes. Could it be ruins, some kind of ancient technology? "Federation records say this system has been surveyed 3 times in the past century," Jake said slowly. No one reported finding anything. "Maybe they weren't looking hard enough," Danny suggested. "Or maybe they didn't have the right equipment to detect it." Jake considered their options. Protocol demanded that they report any discoveries to Federation Command immediately. But he also knew what would happen if they did. The Federation would send a proper alien survey team to investigate, and humans would be pushed aside once again. If there was something important on this world, humanity would never get credit for finding it. "Take us down for a closer look?" Jake decided. But we keep this quiet until we know what we're dealing with. The new horizon descended through the planet's thin atmosphere, following the energy signature to its source. What they found made all three crew members stare in amazement, rising from the frozen landscape was a massive ice formation that clearly wasn't natural. It stretched for kilometers in every direction, with geometric patterns that could only have been created by intelligent design. The ice was different too, harder and more crystalline than anything that should exist on this world. "Captain, I'm reading hollow spaces inside the ice," Lisa reported, her voice tight with excitement. "It's like a vast cave system, but perfectly preserved. The energy signature is coming from deep inside." "How deep?" Jake asked. "At least 2 kilometers down, maybe more?" "The ice is so thick that our sensors can't penetrate all the way to the bottom." Jake stared at the frozen structure on the screen. Whatever this was, it was old. Older than human civilization, older than most of the species in the Federation. And somehow, 3 previous alien survey teams had missed it completely. "Danny, can you find us a way inside?" "I think so, Captain. There's what looks like an entrance on the eastern side. It's sealed with ice, but I can modify our cutting tools to get through." "Do it." 2 hours later, the 3 humans stood at the edge of what could only be described as an artificial cavern. The walls were smooth and clearly shaped by intelligent hands, though they were covered in layers of ice that must have taken thousands of years to accumulate. The energy signature was stronger here, pulsing with a rhythm that almost seemed like a heartbeat. "This is incredible," Lisa whispered, running her gloved hand along the wall. "The construction techniques are far beyond anything in the Federation database. Whoever built this had technology that makes our current level look primitive." "But who could have built it?" Jake asked. "And when? This planet should have been frozen solid for millions of years." "That's what makes it so interesting," Lisa replied. "The ice layers suggest this place was sealed at least 50,000 years ago. But the energy signature means something inside is still active." Danny was studying his instruments, frowning at the readings. "Captain, I'm detecting something else. There are passages leading deeper into the structure, miles of them. This isn't just a building or a monument. It's like an entire city buried under the ice." Jake felt a strange mixture of excitement and apprehension. Humanity had been searching for something, anything that would prove they belonged among the stars. Every other species in the Federation had made great discoveries, found ancient ruins, or uncovered lost technologies. Humans had found nothing but empty worlds and useless rocks until now. "We're going deeper," Jake decided. "But we stick together and we document everything. If this is what I think it is, it could change everything for humanity." They began their descent into the frozen depths, following corridors that seemed to stretch forever into the darkness. The energy signature grew stronger with each step, and Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking toward something that would reshape their understanding of the galaxy. Behind them, the new horizon sat silent on the frozen surface, its communication systems mysteriously unable to reach Federation command. Something was blocking their transmissions, ensuring that whatever they found in the depths of the ice would remain their secret, for now. The deeper they went into the ice caves, the more amazed Jake Morrison became. The corridors were huge, easily wide enough for 10 people to walk side by side. The walls were covered in thick ice, but underneath he could see metal and stone that looked like nothing he had ever seen before. "Captain, these passages go on for miles," Danny Torres said, checking his scanner. "I'm reading at least 12 different levels below us. This place is massive." Dr. Lisa Grant was taking pictures of everything, her eyes wide with excitement. "The architecture is incredible. Look at these support beams. They're perfectly preserved under the ice, and the design is so advanced. I've never seen anything like it in all my years studying ancient civilizations." Jake nodded, but he felt uneasy. Something about this place didn't feel right. The energy signature was getting stronger, and now he could hear it too. A low humming sound that seemed to come from the walls themselves. "How old do you think this place is?" he asked Lisa. Based on the ice layers, I'd say at least 50,000 years, maybe more. But Captain, that's impossible. There were no advanced civilizations in this part of the galaxy 50,000 years ago. Federation records are very clear about that. They continued down the main corridor, their lights cutting through the darkness. The ice was getting thicker on the walls, and Jake could see shapes frozen inside. At first he thought they were just rocks or debris, but as they got closer, he realized they were something else entirely. "Stop," he said suddenly. "Everyone stop." Danny and Lisa froze beside him. Jake pointed his light at the wall to their right. There, perfectly preserved in the crystal-clear ice, was a human face. "That's impossible," Lisa whispered. "That can't be what I think it is." But it was. The face belonged to a man, maybe 30 years old, with strong features and short dark hair. His eyes were closed as if he was sleeping, and his skin looked completely normal. He was wearing some kind of uniform that Jake didn't recognize, made of material that looked far more advanced than anything humans currently used. "There's another one," Danny said, pointing to the left wall. "And another one over there." Jake felt his heart start to race. The walls were full of them. Dozens of human figures, all perfectly preserved in the ice. Men and women of different ages, all wearing the same advanced uniforms. They looked like they had been frozen in time, waiting for someone to find them. "This is impossible," Lisa repeated. But she was already taking pictures and measurements. Humans weren't spacefaring 50,000 years ago. We barely had agriculture. We were still living in caves. "Are you sure these are human?" Jake asked. "Could they be some other species that just looks like us?" Lisa was scanning one of the frozen figures with her instruments. "DNA analysis will take a few hours, but everything I'm seeing says these are definitely human, completely human." They moved deeper into the cave system, finding more and more frozen people. The corridors opened into vast chambers filled with hundreds of the sleeping figures. Each one was perfectly preserved, their faces peaceful as if they were just taking a nap. "Captain, look at this," Danny called out from across one of the chambers. He was standing next to what looked like a control panel, covered in ice but still glowing with a faint blue light. "This technology is incredible. I've never seen anything like it." Jake and Lisa joined him at the panel. The controls were clearly designed for human hands, but they were far more advanced than anything on Earth or even in the Federation. The symbols on the display were in a language that looked almost familiar, but Jake couldn't read them. "Can you figure out what it does?" Jake asked. Danny studied the panel carefully. "I think it's some kind of monitoring system. It's tracking life signs. Look at these readings. They're weak, but they're definitely there." "Captain, I think these people are still alive." "That's impossible," Lisa said. "No one can survive being frozen for 50,000 years." "Maybe they can," Danny replied. "This isn't ordinary ice. It's some kind of preservation system. The energy signature we detected, it's coming from technology that's keeping them alive." Jake stared at the frozen figures around them. If Danny was right, then these weren't just ancient humans. They were ancient humans who were still alive, somehow preserved in this ice cave for tens of thousands of years. "We need to explore more," he decided. "But we stick together and we document everything. This is the most important discovery in human history." They spent the next 6 hours exploring the cave system. Every chamber they found held more frozen humans, and every corridor led to new wonders. There were rooms filled with advanced technology, laboratories with equipment that made Federation science look primitive, and what looked like command centers for some kind of space fleet. "Captain, you need to see this," Lisa called out from a chamber they hadn't explored yet. Her voice was shaking with excitement. Jake and Danny hurried to join her. The chamber was different from the others. Instead of frozen people, it was filled with what looked like vehicles. But these weren't ordinary vehicles. They were clearly designed for space travel, and they were far more advanced than anything in the current galaxy. "Are those spaceships?" Danny asked. "I think so," Lisa replied. "But look at the design. It's completely different from anything the Federation uses. More elegant, more powerful. And Captain, look at the markings on the side. Jake followed her pointing finger and felt his breath catch. There, clearly visible on the side of the nearest ship, was a symbol he recognized. It was the same symbol that appeared on ancient Earth artifacts, the same symbol that some historians claimed was used by the earliest human civilizations. These ships are human, he said quietly, built by humans 50,000 years ago. But how is that possible? Danny asked. Humans weren't even using metal tools 50,000 years ago, let alone building spaceships. Maybe we were wrong about human history, Lisa said. Maybe there's a lot we don't know about our own past. They explored the chamber more carefully, finding dozens of the advanced ships. Each one was perfectly preserved, covered in the same crystal ice that protected the frozen humans. The technology was incredible, far beyond anything Jake had ever seen. Captain, I think I can interface with their computer systems, Danny said. He was studying a control panel near the ships. The technology is advanced, but it's still human-designed. I might be able to access their records. Do it, Jake ordered. We need to understand what this place is and who these people were. Danny worked at the controls for several minutes, his fingers dancing over the strange symbols. Finally, the panel came to life, displaying information in the same unknown language they had seen before. I'm getting something, Danny said. It's some kind of historical record. But Captain, you're not going to believe what it says. Jake and Lisa leaned closer to the display. The symbols were shifting and changing, and slowly Jake began to realize that the language wasn't completely unknown. It was an ancient form of human writing, so old that it had been forgotten by modern civilization. Can you translate it? He asked. Danny was quiet for a long moment, studying the display. I think so. It's talking about a great war. Something about defenders of the galaxy and an ancient enemy. And Captain, it says these people weren't just human. They were the first humans in space, the first humans to travel between the stars. That's impossible, Lisa said. The Federation would have records of that. They keep track of every species that achieves space travel. Maybe they don't know, Jake said quietly. Or maybe they forgot. The display continued to show more information, and Danny kept translating. The story that emerged was incredible. According to the records, humans had been spacefaring for thousands of years before any of the current Federation species had even developed intelligence. They had built a vast civilization that spanned hundreds of worlds. It says they were protectors, Danny continued. Guardians of the galaxy against something called the Devourers, but the war cost them everything. They had to make a choice between saving themselves and saving everyone else. What choice? Jake asked. Danny was quiet for a moment, reading more of the ancient text. They chose to sleep, all of them. They'd put their entire civilization into some kind of suspended animation, waiting for the day when they would be needed again. Jake looked around the chamber at the frozen humans and the ancient ships. And they've been waiting here for 50,000 years. Captain, Lisa said suddenly, if this is true, then everything we know about galactic history is wrong. Humans weren't the last species to achieve space travel. We were the first. Before Jake could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the cave system. The sound was coming from the ancient technology, loud and urgent. The frozen humans hadn't stirred in 50,000 years, but something was waking them up. What's happening? Jake shouted over the noise. Danny was frantically checking the control panels. I don't know. The monitoring systems are going crazy. It's like they're detecting something. The alarms continued, and Jake had the horrible feeling that their discovery was about to become much more complicated. Whatever had put these ancient humans to sleep 50,000 years ago, it was coming back, and the galaxy was about to learn that humanity's real history was far different from what anyone had believed. The alarms echoed through the ice caves as Jake Morrison and his crew tried to understand what was happening. The ancient technology was coming alive all around them, lights flashing and displays showing information in the old human language that Danny was still learning to read. Captain, the life support systems are activating, Danny Torres shouted over the noise. Something is triggering the revival process. Dr. Lisa Grant was studying her instruments with growing excitement and fear. The temperature is rising in the chambers with the frozen humans. The ice is starting to melt. Jake felt his heart racing. They had discovered something incredible, but now it was happening too fast. Can we stop it? I don't think so, Danny replied, working frantically at the control panels. The system is automatic. Once it starts, it has to finish. Captain, I think one of them is about to wake up. They hurried back to the nearest chamber filled with frozen humans. The ice around one of the figures was melting rapidly, and Jake could see the man's chest starting to rise and fall. After 50,000 years of sleep, someone was about to wake up. What do we do? Lisa whispered. We don't know anything about these people. What if they're dangerous? They're human, Jake said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. Whatever else they are, they're still human. The ice continued to melt, and the man's eyes began to flutter open. He was young, maybe 30 years old, with the same strong features they had seen in the frozen face. His uniform was now visible, without the ice covering it, and Jake could see that it was made of some kind of advanced material that looked like it could stop bullets. The man sat up slowly, looking around the chamber with confusion. When he saw Jake and his crew, he spoke in a voice that was rusty from disuse, but clearly speaking English, though with an accent that Jake didn't recognize. Who are you? The man asked. What is your rank and unit? Jake stepped forward carefully. I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel New Horizon. This is Dr. Lisa Grant and Engineer Danny Torres. We're from the year 2387. The man's eyes widened. 2387? How long have I been sleeping? According to our estimates, about 50,000 years. Lisa said gently. The man was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. Then he stood up, and Jake was surprised to see how tall and strong he looked. His movements were smooth and controlled, like a trained soldier. I am Captain Ryan Hayes of the Terran Defense Force, he said formally. If I have been asleep for 50,000 years, then the protocols have been activated. The Devourers must be returning. The Devourers? Jake asked. We found some records mentioning them, but we don't understand what they are. Ryan looked at them with a mixture of sadness and determination. They are the reason we went to sleep, the reason we gave up everything to protect the galaxy. If I'm awake, it means they're coming back. Lisa stepped forward with her scanner. Captain Hayes, would you mind if I took some readings? We need to confirm that you're really human and not some kind of alien that looks like us. Ryan nodded and stood still while Lisa ran her scans. After a few minutes, she looked up with amazement. He's definitely human. Completely human. But his body shows signs of genetic modifications that are far beyond our current medical knowledge. We had to improve ourselves to fight the Devourers, Ryan explained. Stronger, faster, more resistant to their weapons. But we were still human where it mattered. Jake had so many questions he didn't know where to start. Captain Hayes, can you tell us what happened? Why did your people go to sleep? Ryan walked to one of the control panels and began activating systems with practiced ease. 50,000 years ago, humanity was the dominant species in the galaxy. We had spread to hundreds of worlds, built great cities among the stars. We were explorers, scientists, protectors. But the Federation says humans only achieved space travel 32 years ago, Danny said. The Federation? Ryan looked confused. What is this Federation? It's the galactic government, Jake explained. Made up of species like the Zephyrians and the Mindari. They'd been running things for thousands of years. Ryan's expression hardened. The Zephyrians were barely intelligent crystals when we first found them. The Mindari were primitive creatures hiding in caves. We uplifted them, gave them technology, helped them become what they are today. That's impossible, Lisa said. The Federation history books say nothing about humans being involved in their development. Of course they don't, Ryan replied bitterly. They wanted to forget. When we made our sacrifice, they were happy to let human civilization disappear from the records. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. What sacrifice? Ryan activated a large display that showed images of space battles and horrible creatures that looked like living darkness. The Devourers came from outside our galaxy. They consumed entire worlds, turning everything into energy for themselves. They had already destroyed 3 other galaxies before they found ours. The images showed human ships fighting desperately against the dark creatures. Jake could see that the human technology was far more advanced than anything the current Federation possessed. We fought them for 100 years, Ryan continued, but they were too strong. For every one we destroyed, 10 more appeared. We were losing the war, and if we lost, every species in the galaxy would be consumed. So what did you do? Jake asked, though he was beginning to understand. We had to make a choice. We could try to save ourselves and let the galaxy burn, or we could make the ultimate sacrifice. We chose to sleep. Ryan touched another control, and the display showed massive human fleets positioning themselves around the galaxy. We used our most advanced technology to create a barrier around the galaxy. It would keep the Devourers out, but it required constant maintenance. So we put our entire civilization to sleep, with automated systems monitoring the barrier. But why sleep? Lisa asked. Why not just maintain the barrier while awake? Because we knew they would return someday, Ryan said. The barrier would eventually weaken, and when it did, we would be needed again. But we also knew that the other species would need time to develop. So we waited, sleeping in ice caves like this one all across the galaxy. Jake was starting to understand the full scope of what they had discovered. How many of you are there? Millions, Ryan replied. Scattered across hundreds of worlds, all waiting for the signal to wake up. And that signal just activated? Danny asked. Ryan nodded grimly. The barrier is failing. The Devourers are probing our defenses. Soon they will break through, and the galaxy will face the same threat it faced 50,000 years ago. But the Federation has fleets, Jake protested. They have advanced weapons. Do they? Ryan asked. Or do they have the toys we left behind, watered down and misunderstood? Captain Morrison, the species that make up your Federation were given technology by humanity. But they were never told how to truly use it or improve it. They've been playing with shadows of our real capabilities. Lisa was studying the data on the display. If this is true, then humanity has been suppressed deliberately. The Federation kept us down because they were afraid we might remember our past. Of course they were afraid, Ryan said. They knew that if humanity ever regained its full potential, their comfortable positions would be threatened. Better to keep us as junior partners than risk us reclaiming our role as the galaxy's protectors. Jake felt anger building inside him. All the humiliation, all the dismissive treatment, all the times humans had been treated as second-class citizens in their own galaxy. What do we do now? Now we wake up our people, Ryan said, and we prepare for war. The Devourers won't wait for us to be ready. Ryan began activating more systems, and Jake could see displays showing the locations of other ice caves across the galaxy. Thousands of them, each containing sleeping humans from the ancient civilization. Captain Morrison, I need you to contact your Earth, Ryan said. Tell them what you found. Tell them that humanity's true history is about to begin again. Jake tried to activate his communicator, but it still wasn't working. We can't. Something is blocking our transmissions. Ryan's expression grew serious. Then they already know. The Federation has been monitoring these sites. They know we're waking up, and they're trying to stop us from communicating. Why would they do that? Lisa asked. Because they're afraid, Ryan replied. They've gotten comfortable being in charge. They don't want to give up their power, even if it means the galaxy gets destroyed. Jake felt the weight of the situation settling on his shoulders. Humanity had been lied to for thousands of years. Their true heritage had been hidden from them. And now, with the galaxy facing an ancient threat, the current powers were trying to prevent humanity from reclaiming its role as protector. What do we do? He asked. Ryan smiled, and for the first time Jake saw hope in his eyes. We do what humans have always done, Captain. We fight for what's right, no matter the cost. And this time, we're going to make sure the galaxy remembers who we really are. The ancient alarm systems continued to blare, but now Jake understood. What they meant, they weren't just warning of danger. They were calling humanity home. The awakening process was happening faster now. Throughout the ice caves, Captain Ryan Hayes could hear the sounds of ancient systems coming to life. More humans were waking up from their 50,000-year sleep, and each one brought skills and knowledge that the galaxy had forgotten. Jake Morrison watched in amazement as Ryan worked at the control panels with perfect understanding. The ancient technology responded to his touch like it had been waiting all this time for him to return. "Captain Hayes, how many people are waking up here?" Dr. Lisa Grant asked, checking her instruments. "This facility holds about 2,000. Of our people," Ryan replied without looking away from his work. "Scientists, engineers, soldiers, and commanders." Each ice cave was designed to hold specialists in different fields. Danny Torres was studying the readings from the awakening chambers. "Sir, I'm detecting massive energy spikes all across the galaxy. It looks like similar facilities are activating everywhere," Ryan nodded grimly. "The network is responding to the threat. When the barrier started failing, it triggered all the awakening protocols simultaneously. Millions of my people are waking up right now." Jake felt a mix of excitement and worry. What about the Federation? "They must be detecting all this activity." "Oh, they know," Ryan said. "They've been monitoring these sites for decades, waiting for this day. They knew it would come eventually." As if summoned by his words, Jake's communicator suddenly crackled. To life, after hours of silence, they were receiving a transmission from Federation Command. "New Horizon, this is Admiral Zex of the Federation Fleet," came a voice speaking the crystalline language of the Zephyrians, translated by the ship's computer. "You are ordered to return to your ship immediately and report to Federation Command." Jake looked at Ryan, who nodded. "Answer them, Captain. But be careful what you say." Jake activated his communicator. "Admiral Zex, this is Captain Morrison. We're conducting a routine survey of the system." "Do not lie to us, human." The Admiral's voice was cold and threatening. "We know what you have found. Return to your ship at once or face the consequences." "And what consequences are those?" Jake asked, his anger starting to build. "Your species' membership in the Federation depends on your cooperation. Return now, or Earth will be expelled from galactic society." Jake felt Ryan's hand on his shoulder. The ancient captain's voice was calm but hard as steel. "Tell him that humanity no longer needs Federation permission for anything." "I can't say that," Jake whispered. "They'll destroy Earth, will they?" Ryan asked. "Or are they just afraid of what we might remember?" Before Jake could respond, new alarms started blaring. These weren't coming from the ancient human systems. They were coming from space, from the New Horizons sensors. "Captain Morrison," came Danny's voice from their ship, "we've got company. 3 Federation warships just dropped out of faster than light. Travel, they're surrounding us." Ryan walked to another control panel and activated what looked like a communication system. "Federation vessels, this is Captain Ryan Hayes of the Terran Defense Force. You are in violation of human space. Withdraw immediately." The response came quickly, this time in English but with the mental voice patterns of the telepathic Mindari. "Unknown vessel, you are using unauthorized communication frequencies. Identify yourself properly or we will open fire." Ryan smiled, but there was no humor in it. "I am properly identified. I am the rightful commander of this system, and you are trespassing." "There is no such thing as the Terran Defense Force," the Mindari voice replied. "Humans are junior members of the Federation. You have no authority here." "Is that what you told yourselves?" Ryan asked. "Did you really believe your own lies for so long that you forgot the truth?" Jake could hear confusion in the alien voice when it responded. "What truth?" "Humans achieved space travel only 32 years ago." "The truth that you were animals when we found you," Ryan said calmly. "The truth that we gave you intelligence, technology, and civilization. The truth that without human protection, your species would have been consumed by the Devourers long ago." There was a long silence from the Federation ships. Finally, a different voice spoke, this one belonging to a Zephyrian. Even if what you claim is true, that was 50,000 years ago. Times have changed. We are the dominant powers now. Are you? Ryan asked. Let me show you how much times have changed. Ryan touched a control, and suddenly the ice around them began to shift and move. What Jake had thought was just a frozen cave was actually something much more. The ice was a camouflage system, and underneath it was a massive installation that stretched for miles in every direction. "Danny, are you seeing this?" Jake called to their ship. "Captain, our sensors are going crazy." "That's not just a cave system. It's a space station, a huge one, and it's powering up." Through the transparent sections of the station, Jake could see ancient human ships emerging from hidden bays. They were beautiful and deadly, with designs that made Federation vessels look like crude toys. "This is impossible," came the Zephyrian voice from the Federation fleet. "Our sensors show no ships. There is nothing there." "Your sensors see what?" "We want them to see," Ryan replied. "You've been using technology you don't understand for so long that you've forgotten how it really works." Lisa was staring at the ships in amazement. "Captain Hayes, how many vessels do you have?" "This station has 500 ships," Ryan said. "And there are 2,000 stations like this one across the galaxy. We've been preparing for this day for 50,000 years." Jake felt the ground shake as more ships launched from the hidden bays. The Federation fleet that had seemed so threatening a few minutes ago now looked small and helpless. "Federation vessels, you have 30 seconds to withdraw from this system," Ryan announced. "After that, we will consider you hostile." "You cannot threaten Federation ships," the Mindari commander protested. "We have the authority of the galactic government." "You have the authority we gave you," Ryan corrected. "And we're taking it back?" Jake watched on the displays as the Federation ships tried to scan the human vessels. Their weapons powered up, but then something strange happened. The Federation ship systems began shutting down one by one. "What's happening to them?" Jake asked. "We're turning off their toys," Ryan explained. "Every piece of technology they use was originally human design. We built back doors into all of it, just in case this day ever came." The Federation ships were now floating helplessly in space, their engines dead and weapons offline. Jake could hear panicked voices over the communication channels as the alien crews tried to understand what was happening. "This is Admiral Zex," came the Zephyrian voice, now sounding much less confident. "What have you done to our ships?" "Nothing permanent," Ryan replied. "Consider it a demonstration. Your technology only works because we allow it to work." More ships were launching from the ancient station, and Jake could see similar launches happening from other systems across the galaxy. On the displays, thousands of human vessels were taking their positions around Federation worlds. "Captain Hayes, what's the plan?" Jake asked. "First, we secure our people on Earth," Ryan said. "The Federation has been keeping humanity suppressed for too long. It's time for them to remember who they really are." "And then?" Ryan's expression grew serious as he pointed to another display showing the edge of the galaxy. Dark shapes were moving there, testing the ancient barriers that had protected the galaxy for so long. "Then we prepare for the real war. The Devourers are coming, and this time we won't sacrifice our civilization to stop them. This time we fight to win." Jake felt a chill as he realized what was happening. The Federation had kept humanity down, thinking they were protecting their own power. But they had also weakened the galaxy's best defenders just when they were needed most. "Will we be strong enough?" Lisa asked, voicing the question they were all thinking. Ryan smiled, and this time there was confidence in his expression. "Dr. Grant, we spent 50,000 years preparing for this moment. We've improved our technology, refined our strategies, and strengthened our resolve. The Devourers destroyed our civilization once, but they won't do it again." "What about the Federation species?" Jake asked. "Will you help them?" "Of course," Ryan said without hesitation. "Despite everything they've done, they're still our responsibility. We uplifted them once, and will protect them again. But this time, they'll know exactly who's doing the protecting." The ancient alarm systems finally fell silent as the awakening process completed. Across the galaxy, millions of humans from the ancient civilization were taking their first breaths in 50,000 years. Ships that had slept under ice and stone were rising to reclaim the stars. Jake looked around at the incredible technology surrounding them and felt a mixture of pride and sadness. Humanity had been so much more than anyone had imagined. But they had also paid a terrible price to save the galaxy once before. Now it was time to see if they could do it again. 3 days after the awakening began, Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the ancient flagship Earthborn beside Captain Ryan Hayes. The ship was massive, 10 times larger than any Federation vessel, and filled with technology that still amazed him even after seeing it in action. Through the main view screen, Jake could see Earth in the distance. But it wasn't the Earth he remembered. Ancient human ships surrounded the planet like protective guardians, and orbital stations that had been hidden for 50,000 years were now fully active and visible. "How are our people adjusting?" Jake asked Ryan. "Better than expected," Ryan replied. The awakening process included memory downloads that helped them understand what happened while we slept. But seeing how far humanity fell is still difficult. For many of them, Dr. Lisa Grant was working at a science station, studying data from across the galaxy. Captain Hayes, the Federation Council has been meeting for 3 days straight. They still can't accept what's happening. "Let me guess," Ryan said with a bitter smile. "They're calling it an invasion." "Actually, they're calling it impossible," Lisa corrected. "Half of them think we're using some kind of illusion technology. The other half believe we're aliens pretending to be human." Danny Torres looked up from his engineering console. "Sir, I've been studying the Federation's technology archives. You're right about the back doors. Every major system they use has human override codes built into it. They never even knew they were there." Jake shook his head in amazement. Even after everything he had seen, it was hard to believe that humanity had once been so advanced. "How did we hide all of this for so long?" "We didn't hide it," Ryan explained. "We buried it. When we went to sleep, we programmed our systems to appear as natural formations, ice caves, asteroid fields, dead planets. The Federation surveyed these locations hundreds of times and never found anything because we didn't want to be found." Alarms suddenly started blaring throughout the ship. Jake tensed, but Ryan remained calm as he checked the displays. "They're here," Ryan announced grimly. "The Devourers have broken through the barrier." On the main screen, the image of Earth was replaced by a view of the galaxy's edge. Dark shapes were pouring through gaps in what looked like empty space. But Jake could now see the shimmering energy barrier that had protected them for so long. "How many?" Lisa asked, her voice tight with fear. "Thousands," Ryan replied. "More than we faced before. They've been gathering strength for 50,000 years, just like we have." The Devourers looked exactly like Ryan had described them. They were creatures of living darkness, each one the size of a small moon. They moved through space without ships, consuming everything in their path and converting it into pure energy. "Orders, sir?" asked Commander Kate Phillips, Ryan's second-in-command, who had awakened at another facility. "Send the signal to all stations," Ryan ordered. "Operation Eternal Dawn is now active." Jake watched in amazement as thousands of human ships across the galaxy began moving into formation. Each ship was a masterpiece of ancient technology, armed with weapons that could destroy planets and protected by shields that bent space itself. "What about the Federation?" Jake asked. "Are you going to ask for their help?" "We already did," Ryan said, pointing to another screen. "Look," the display showed Federation ships trying desperately to engage the Devourers. Their weapons hit the dark creatures but had no effect. Within minutes, entire Federation fleets were being consumed, their energy added to the Devourers' strength. "Admiral Zex is requesting assistance," reported the communications officer. "Put him through," Ryan ordered. The face of the crystalline Zephyrion appeared on screen, and Jake could see panic in his normally cold features. "Captain Hayes, we need your help. Our weapons are useless against these creatures." "Admiral, are you prepared to acknowledge human authority in this matter?" Ryan asked calmly. Yes, anything," Admiral Zex replied quickly. "Just help us stop them." Ryan nodded to his crew. "All Federation vessels are to withdraw to safe distances. We'll handle the Devourers, but how?" Admiral Zex asked. If our weapons can't hurt them, how can yours? Because we learned from our mistakes, Ryan said simply. Jake watched as the human fleet moved into attack formation. The ships were beautiful to see in action, moving with perfect coordination like they were all controlled by a single mind. The Devourers feed on energy, Ryan explained to Jake as they watched the battle begin. 50,000 years ago, we tried to fight them with conventional weapons. Energy beams, plasma cannons, fusion missiles. We were just giving them more food. So what's different now? Jake asked. Now we understand what they really are, Ryan said. They're not from our universe. They're from a place where the laws of physics work differently. Our weapons couldn't hurt them because we were using the wrong kind of energy. The human ships opened fire, but their weapons didn't look like anything Jake had ever seen. Instead of energy beams, they fired what looked like tears in space itself. When these weapons hit the Devourers, the creatures screamed in voices that could be heard across the vacuum of space. Dimensional disruptors, Ryan explained. We spent 30,000 years developing them. They don't use energy from our universe, so the Devourers can't absorb them. Instead, they tear apart the fabric that lets the Devourers exist in our reality. Jake watched in amazement as the first wave of Devourers was torn apart by the human weapons. The creatures that had seemed unstoppable moments before were now retreating, their dark forms flickering as they tried to escape back to their own dimension. Is it working? Lisa asked hopefully. The first phase is, Ryan replied, but there are millions more coming. This is going to be a long fight. For the next 6 hours, Jake watched humanity's ancient fleet battle the Devourers across dozens of star systems. The human ships moved with incredible skill, using tactics that had been refined over thousands of years of warfare, but the Devourers kept coming. For every one the humans destroyed, 10 more poured through the weakening barrier. Jake began to worry that even humanity's advanced technology might not be enough. Captain Hayes, came a voice from the communications station. We're receiving a transmission from the Devourer fleet. They want to talk. Ryan looked surprised. They want to negotiate? That's new. Put them through, he ordered. The voice that came over the speakers was like the sound of stars dying, cold and ancient beyond measure. Children of Earth, you have grown strong in our absence. Strong enough to destroy you, Ryan replied firmly. Perhaps. But at what cost? We have consumed 3 galaxies since we last met. We are no longer the force you once knew. Surrender now, and we will consume your galaxy quickly. Resist, and we will make the process last for eons. Here's a counteroffer. Ryan said, leave our galaxy now, and we won't follow you back to whatever dark hole you crawled out of. The Devourer's laughter was like the sound of worlds cracking. You cannot follow us, little humans. You do not understand the true nature of reality. Don't we? Ryan asked. He turned to his crew. Activate the Infinity Protocol. Jake felt the ship shudder as something incredible happened. All around them, space itself began to change. The human ships weren't just fighting in normal space anymore. They were fighting across multiple dimensions, chasing the Devourers back to their own realm. Impossible, the Devourer voice whispered. You cannot have learned our secrets. We had 50,000 years to study the pieces of your forces we captured, Ryan said. Did you think we spent all that time sleeping? The battle shifted as human ships began appearing in the Devourer's home dimension. Jake could see it on the screens, a place of twisted physics where darkness had substance and energy flowed backwards. This ends now, Ryan announced to the Devourer. Fleet, you will leave our universe and never return, or we will destroy every last one of you in your own realm. The Devourer forces began to retreat, pulling back through the dimensional barriers they had torn open. Their leader's voice came one last time, filled with something Jake had never expected to hear from such a creature. Fear. This is not over. Children of Earth, we will remember you. Good, Ryan replied, because if you ever come back, we'll be waiting. The last of the Devourers disappeared from normal space, and the ancient barriers sealed themselves behind them. Across the galaxy, human ships began to stand down from battle stations. Jake looked around the bridge of the Earthborn and realized that everything had changed. Humanity was no longer the joke of the galaxy, they were its protectors once again. "What happens now?" he asked Ryan. "Now we rebuild," Ryan said. "The Federation is dissolved. The galaxy needs new leadership, and this time we won't make the mistake of hiding our true nature." Jake thought about Earth, about the billions of humans who were about to learn that their species was far more important than anyone had imagined. "Will they accept human leadership?" Lisa asked. Ryan smiled. "They don't have much choice, but Dr. Grant, we're not conquerors. We're protectors. The galaxy will be better off with us watching over it." Jake nodded, feeling a pride he had never experienced before. Humanity had been mocked and dismissed for decades, but they had always been the galaxy's true guardians. Now everyone would know it. The stars looked different now, not like distant lights, but like worlds under human protection. And Jake knew that no matter what threats came from the darkness,